welcome to everybody to our In Conversation series. And today for this very interesting episode, we have with us Srini Krish. Srini is the President Global Services Fiserv. Thank you, Srini, for joining us.
Thank you, Sukanya. I want to take a minute and say thank you to nasscom for giving us the opportunity to be able to share our journey, and hopefully you all find this useful and interesting.
Thank you. And thank you so much for contributing to this, because the more we share, the more we learn, and that's how the ecosystem grows, and that's the motto of nasscom. We'll talk about a very interesting topic today, right? The topic is, it's about building and nurturing the culture of ideation to execution. Now, that's a complicated topic for any organization. I mean, I don't think it's ever very simple. It's not just about getting people and asking them to ideate, but it's also building the entire support structure around it. In the context of global capability centers, there is also the complexity of not necessarily being located near your market, not having necessarily the perspective on what the larger organization is thinking and doing. So the complexity sometimes, gets a little added on. So Srini, tell us, how does an organization, build the culture? That's one angle. Second is also the processes and the support structure so that you can move from ideation to execution end to end.
Yeah, look, first of all, I know, you know this as well as I do. GCCs have made significant strides in the past few years, right? So it's no longer the old sort of nomination of what that used to mean. GCCs are now centers for innovation. They're incubating a lot of proof of concepts, even all the way to the market strategies, right? So that's not new. And built in India for the globe is not a new concept. There are several examples that we find in the market these days, right? But it's about a journey. I mean, as you rightly pointed out, it's not one thing, but it's multiple touch points, several stakeholders, bringing people together. I would say a few things that are extremely important. First and foremost, it's the alignment, right? It's the alignment to what you're trying to do or what you're trying to solve for. Right. And that's extremely important. Getting that right will help enable a lot of other things to fall in place. And as you said about this particular program, about how sharing is important, collaboration is extremely important, right? So innovation doesn't happen in silos. This is not an individual sport, it's a team sport, right? So you got to bring multiple people together, whether it's geographies, expertise, product knowledge, industry knowledge, for you to be able to make that sort of culture work for you. And then, I always say leadership is about clarity, right? Making sure that you articulate your goals clearly. To the point I said earlier, you got to be clear about what you're trying to solve for. While you make that clear, you got to also be explicitly clear about, how much risk are you willing to take, right? So, and again, in this context, it's about putting the guardrails so people know where to sort of, where they have the flexibility to be able to step away from their day-to-day sort of, thought process, and to be able to sort of push the boundaries a little bit. And then the most important thing in all of this is positioning the people for success, right? Whether it's the skill set that they need, whether it's the type of environment and ecosystem where they can actually contribute, get feedback, thrive, and also the right forums that they can participate, right? So when you think about a global organization, if folks are sitting in one corner of the world trying to solve for world hunger, you're not going to get it right? So you're going to have to be in the right forums, listen to the right things. And then I say agility is important, right? By that, I don't mean just agile practices, but, innovation happens because there is a need in the market. There is a need so that somebody is trying to solve for, but you got to be cognizant that the world does move, right? So you can't be in this journey without being cognizant of what's happening around you, so you can quickly sort of adapt and change and move forward. So for us here at Global Services, this has been a journey that we've been on for 3 years. We started with one fundamental premise, which is to be an excellent organization in engineering practices. That's kind of where we started. We said, while you're doing that, you want to be able to keep the client at the center of everything you do, right? So for us, client means everything, and that's the center of our world. And now, how do you become an engineering organization that's really good at what you do while you're trying to be innovative, right? So it's all three of those things sort of go hand in hand. So again, just to reiterate, it's a journey, it's start to finish, it's multiple touch points, bringing everybody together, making sure that you provide the appropriate guardrails for your risk appetite and risk tolerance, and then providing the right ecosystem, right? Whether it is the ability to be able to capture ideas that can come from any part of the organization, and not just capture it, but be able to provide a platform for folks to provide constructive criticism, right? For example, I might not be the most creative person in the world, but you have an idea, I'm at least able to contribute to that idea to say, you know what, Sukanya, this may work in the context of what we're trying to solve, but how about this, right? So when people start to collaborate, things start to get better. So it's an end-to-end, it's a process.
Yeah, like you said, right, you need the platforms and then the mechanisms to see it through. Right. And like you said, the entire guardrails and the protection. You spoke about keeping client in the center of your thought process, and that's not easy. That's not easy for a lot of us. Definitely, the people in the field of technology, we get so kicked about, oh, what a cool technology! How do I use it? Look at this complex thing we are building. So, what are some of the challenges in building that client-centric, organization, and also how could one approach that, right? What are some of the on-ground things that someone can do to bring in that client centricity?
Yeah, look, I think, first and foremost is understanding who or what you're solving for and who are you actually doing all of this for, right? At Fiserv, we always say we innovate on behalf of our clients, right? So we're not innovating within Fiserv for Fiserv, but we're innovating on behalf of our clients. And as our CEO constantly says, we want to win in our client's office. So client being successful in their businesses, to us, is the foremost thing that needs to be sort of kept in the front, right? And then having a successful client-centric approach, for that, the orgs sort of need to be aligned to it. So you have to culturally sort of start people to think about it. You could do in very simple things, right? So one of the things that we practice is we call it know your client. So there is a sort of market and intelligence and competitive intelligence data that we collect on a regular basis that's shared with people widely on a weekly basis, and we talk about it, right? So this is about understanding what are some of the challenges as it pertains to their competition, what are some of their aspirations as it pertains to how they want to grow their business, and you sort of get a holistic picture, and that's your background, and now that's where you want to start, right? What that does, it starts to shift, from being reactive to proactive in a very subtle fashion. Right now, you're no longer just reacting to what's out there, but you're looking at it, you're reading ahead, you're thinking about it, and now you start to show that as part of your day-to-day activities. The biggest challenge, though, is, it's, as you rightly said, it's getting caught in the rut of the BAU, right? So it's always about the next client release. It's about, maybe next conversion, you're bringing in a new feature. It's very easy to sort of get caught in that. And what I say for that is, that's not always, that's your bread and butter. You got to do that. If you can't do that, what's the point of innovation, right? So what I say is, if each one of us left what we found better than how we found it in the first place, just if you have that frame of mind, right, and say, it doesn't have to be the next shiny object. Innovation doesn't have to be the next cool thing. It could be about making something that you just took on, looking at it. I always say the proverbial, when the hood is up, right? So when you're working in a car, you're looking at something, you're actually doing something on behalf of the client, and you're seeing it and you go, you know what, I heard, as part of the market intelligence, this is what folks are doing. I'm already in there trying to make this change. Now I should be able to make it even better than how it is, right? That actually starts to bring in a culture of innovation doesn't have to be in a silo. It's sort of integrated into your BAU. And more often than not, people get caught up with BAU. So how do you sort of take that to be your advantage rather than that being your obstacle? Now, having said that, you still have to sort of curate innovation. That's a must, right? You have to have, things like hackathons, which has specific purpose of what you're trying to solve for. And we do this, called a business innovation group, which I can talk about in a little bit later, that on an annualized basis, we bring together 30 different individuals, different ones every year. They self-nominate themselves, and we pick and choose them for the type of skill set that they bring to the table. And we curate the innovation in a way that over a period of 6 to 8 weeks, they bring new ideas and new market, sort of introductions that can add value. So challenges are always there. There are several ways of sort of working around them, but the most important thing is setting the context and making sure who you're actually solving this for. Like I said, going back to what I said earlier, winning in the client's office for us is the most important thing. And our clients being successful in their business is the most important thing. So if you sort of put that as the front most thing that you're working on, everything else sort of works from there.
The innovation group that you spoke about seems really interesting. I mean, it must be something that people really look forward to being a part of, and I'm sure it's quite exciting. That's something that happens globally, or is it more within the GBA?
So let me talk about that a little bit, right? So, one of the things that we pride ourselves, which is probably the case with most GCCs in India as well. And I always say, we're a microcosm for the global Fiserv, right? So what I mean by that is, we have representation of every single product, every single function, every single geography, every single technology. I can go on and on. And now, of course, it's not all in a single room, right? So we operate across 4 different cities. And if you were to bring those expertise all in a single room, first of all, that doesn't happen anywhere else in the world, right? I mean, you obviously have, geography. We operate in 100 different countries, and we have, associates in 40 different, geographies. So bringing those talent and groups of people together under a single sort of roof, the ability to be able to innovate on behalf of not just Fiserv, but for fintech overall, is unique, and we're well positioned to do that. And like I said, and probably most GCCs are there. Now, how do you take advantage of that, right? So what we do is, this is what we started here 3 years ago. This would be our 3rd year. We do once a year. It's about 6 to 8 weeks. And for the ease, we generally pick the associates from India, but they clearly can't do this in silo. So they work very closely with product managers that are globally located. They work with business leaders that are globally located. And the way we do that is self-nominate, go through a rigorous interview process, look for skill sets that we need, whether it is technology, business, industry expertise, things like that. And it'll be a mix of things, right? Yeah. So it's not just a bunch of cloud engineers. So you bring a bunch of people together, split them into 3 or 4 groups, and give them 3 or 4 big problems to go solve for, right? And again, you get these problems by having conversations with the business leaders. And you're exactly right. I mean, it's a bragging right for these individuals, right? When you think about 8,000 engineers and you pick 30 of them, clearly that's a very sort of elite group to be part of. And we've had 2 sets of them so far, and we're on a journey for the 3rd. Actually, in fact, we kicked it off yesterday. So we're on our 3rd iteration of that.
Interesting. And this is across experience range. You have
Yes. Wow. We have people who have been part of this who are came through our technology analyst programs, right? So these are fresh college graduates to people who have been with the company for 15 to 20 years. Like I said, sometimes diversity helps, right? So when you have people who are, have not thought about payments all their life, can think about payments in a very different way. And people who have thought about payments their entire career can tell you what are some of the things that works and doesn't work. So we believe in inclusion and diversity, especially when it comes to innovation.
Such a fantastic example of ideation to execution. I'm sure some of this will live through beyond the 6 to 8 weeks, and then see much more development and maturity as it goes through.
Well, that's the key, right? So I think the key is not to let things die on the vine, right? So, it's one thing to sort of ideate and create a POC, but to take it all the way through MVP and take it all the way through a year-end planning process and take it through the market introduction, you can only do that if you start at the right place, right? So for example, the senior most leaders of the organization are aware of what we do here. So a conversation that I personally have with them to make sure that they understand that, we're going to be solving for some of the problems that they are working on. So that sort of sets the horizon and expectation that something's going to come out of this, which we actually have to build on top of to be able to take it.
This is not a summer project. This is something big for the organization. You spoke about bringing together people from different skills, right? Bringing that, those ideal Scrum, what ideally a Scrum team should look like, which is all of that, what is needed. So look at 2 to 3 years from now, right? And of course, there's a lot of conversation around generative AI taking care of so many activities for us. But let's say 2 years from now, right? What are the skills of the future, right? What should your people in your organization or other tech organizations focus on building now?
Yeah, look, organizations have been at, sort of building human capital levers, right? Whether it's capability building or whether it is leadership, development and things like that. to me, innovation, growth, client centricity, these are mindsets, right? Not so much a skill set particularly, but again, it's a nuanced behavior. Now, there is absolutely no, substitute for having the right sort of technology skill set as the baseline for all of this to happen. And to me, I think now these days, it's about having the right digital quotient, right? Making sure that people are thinking digital first is extremely important as you come into the organization. Now, I also say a few other things that are important before you get into the actual skill sets itself. It's about making sure that you have a global sort of perspective, right? We no longer operate in, regional sort of context, right? So these, again, regardless of what your job is, you're probably interacting with different markets and different sort of regions and different expectations. So having that sort of perspective is extremely important. And that skill set is not something that is replaceable. Right. And then you can also sort of build this by creating talent communities, right? One of the things that we do is bring communities of practitioners, right? Whether it is agile practitioners, whether it is full stack developers, when you bring those folks together, they start to thrive off of each other and they start to feed off of each other to be able to build on top of it. Leadership is an extremely important skill set to have, right? And again, we're very intentional about it, making sure that we cross skill, sort of upskill, and make sure that we provide people with opportunities to be able to be mobile within the organization, to learn, continue to grow, and be pertinent. As you rightly said, as it pertains to the more recent technologies, is the thing that we all talk about, right? Whether it's artificial intelligence, there isn't an hour that goes by there isn't something happening in ChatGPT, right? Or whether it's machine learning, whether it's intelligence, process automation, robotic process automation, cloud. I mean, a lot of people are in cloud. Deep data insights is important, but these are technical skills that you can actually teach people, right? So what we do is we have an incredible sort of platform that we have built over the years that helps people to be able to learn whatever they want to learn. So you could be in one part of the organization working on a product or a technology, and you're interested or curious to know about something else that's very diametrically opposite to what you're working on. You have access to be able to go learn, whether it's machine learning, whether it's artificial intelligence, and not just that, right? Not just that you have access to it, you learn and get certified. We have built a path, right, that says if you're here and you want to end up here, what courses do you take and what groups are actually doing that, right? So, and again, if there's one future skill that you ask me what that's important, it's continuous learning, right? Otherwise we're dead, right? So to the extent that people continue to learn, take advantage of the platforms, take advantage of the resources that we provide, I think we're going to be pertinent for a very long time.
Yeah, one thing we've realized that, earlier, every couple of years, there was something new. Now it's a couple of months, maybe 2 to 3 years from now, it's a couple of weeks, right? There's going to be something different couple of weeks. And then, we'll just be catching up if we're not on our toes. Srini, I think, the points that you raised very clearly shows your leadership vision and your focus on what is important in the long term. But in an organization where there are a lot of people, your next level, people who are running critical teams, I'm sure they're dealing with n number of complexities, escalations, things that have suddenly got to be addressed. Now, how do they themselves build that kind of a, mindset within themselves that, innovation needs to be a part of thing, and how do they promote that with their teams when, there are fires to be doused, I'm sure, on any given day?
Yeah, look, that's a great question, right? It's a struggle, but without having proper leaders and proper vision, it's incredibly important that if you don't have that, it's going to be incredibly hard to have a proper innovation journey. So I always say, innovation is storytelling, right? And leaders are the sutradhars, right? So our responsibility is to be able to connect the dots. The vantage point that whether it's me in the organization or whether it's someone above me or below me, the vantage point that we have, the people below us don't have necessarily, right? So you clearly are at a different point, for that to take advantage of that, you have to have regular conversations with multiple stakeholders globally to at least listen to the challenges that they face, ask them questions about what the customers are saying, ask them about what the competition is doing, and then bring that back to the organization to, again, inculcate that knowledge in people for them to have the same perspective, right? The more clarity you bring, the more helpful it is for people as they're going through their day-to-day responsibilities to have that sort of perspective and say, I heard this while I'm doing this, I see this can be something that we can take care of and do, really better at, right? Now, what is also important as a leader is to provide the ecosystem. We talked about it earlier, right? I mean, the ecosystem is providing the right budgets, making sure that they have the right perspective, making sure that people are in the right forums to be able to listen to individuals. Simple things like sandbox environments, right? Sometimes things fail because you don't have the right environment where it is boxed appropriately to be able to try new things, right? Sometimes you get, you don't, when you don't have that, which is a secure environment where you can go try new things, you get stopped because you cannot use new tools, you cannot use, new products that are out there. So enabling things like that, these small things make a huge difference, right? And let's not forget, you got to celebrate failures as much, if not more than successes, because a lot of times you learn a lot more from a failure, right? So to be very intentional about not just talking about the innovators, but also the innovation itself, right? So one of the things that we do is on an annual basis, we do this innovation sort of symposium, for lack of a better word, right? This is to bring together all the different things that people dreamt of, thought of, and did as part of their day-to-day job. What that does is it humanizes it, right? So it's no longer, this person is creative, so the person can innovate, but every sort of innovation has its own sort of journey. So people are able to touch and feel and ask questions about, did you face this challenge? How did you sort of do this? And it democratizes the whole process of innovation, and it's been extremely, extremely valuable for us on an annual basis.
So it's like almost a showcase and a festival.
Exactly.
You come to different people, you talk about what they've done.
Right. So everybody's got a booth. They actually talk about what they did, not only what they did, but how they went about doing it, and what are some of the things that worked and what are some of the things that didn't work. So it sort of pushes it across the organization for people to actually touch and feel and take away that it's not that hard for us to be able to do that.
And again, it adds to the sharing and the building of it, because you learn from 3 other experiences, right? I have one last question, Srini. How do you, align your priorities and with, let's say, the rest of the organization and some of the business units, and to ensure that there is ownership of ideation? Of course, there is a top-down approach, and I'm sure some mandates come out from there, but from ideas that are coming out from the global services, how do you take them? Like, what's your methodology?
Yeah, look, that's great. So look, I mean, the global team concept is not a new one anymore, right? I mean, whether it is, having global roles in India, we used to talk about it 5-10 years ago. Now there is, every organization has a global role that's based in India, sort of delivering for the rest of the world. Similarly, a few years ago, we would think about product management as a very sort of uncharted territory, right? We have crossed that chasm now, right? So we have product management discipline here in India, sitting closer to the engineering teams. And then, in the past, Valley is where you go find high-end engineers, right? It's no longer the case. We have high-end engineering teams set up here that take end-to-end responsibility for not just delivering, pieces and parts of the functionality, but a whole set of, features that get actually introduced to the market from here, from end to end. So I can think of many ways, right? For the first and foremost, I think, is to embrace and prioritize diversity, right? And again, I say this because things don't happen in silos. This is a team sport, right? To be able to understand people diversity, cultural diversity, geographic diversity, and bringing all of that together and start with a place of mutual respect. So when you're talking with business partners and counterparts across the globe, everybody's got something to bring to the table. And you got to be clear about what is that you bring to the table. And in our case, what we bring to the table is the unparalleled depth and the breadth of the functionality and the expertise that we have, right? And again, this goes to across the globe, every single function, every single product. It doesn't happen everywhere else in the world. This is one place where we can bring that sort of expertise in depth and breadth. Now, once you do that, I think you always lead with innovation. To me, I think innovation is a very key differentiator for us to be able to bring it. And you can't do this without understanding the context of what you're trying to solve for, right? So, if you're making sure that you understand client being successful in their business is the most important thing. Client centricity is the most important thing. We have the breadth and depth of knowledge. And how do I bring all of this together in a sort of an inclusive, diverse way for us to continue to iterate? And it's okay to fail as long as the guardrails are set appropriately, in making sure that people understand the guardrails and continuing to clear the path for, whatever obstacles that come through the way, whether it's lack of environment, lack of tools, lack of technology, lack of training, things like that. So I think it's a place of mutual respect, making sure that you include a wide variety of people with diverse expertise, providing the right tools and providing the right environment for people, and be there to celebrate successes and failures equally. So
I think Srini, what you're saying is get the foundational elements right?
Right.
Get the alignment right in the beginning, where the team here really understands why they would suggest something that they would suggest, and then the end mile will not be that difficult in that sense.
Exactly right.
Absolutely fantastic conversation. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Very insightful. I loved some of the programs that you spoke about. I think the FAIR concept was great. The kind of the innovation challenge you spoke about, very interesting. Would love to hear from you what kind of ideas came out and then went into the roadmap. And I'm sure we'll have a chance to discuss that some other time as well. Thank you so much for joining us today, Srini. Appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity to share our story. We're happy to do it.